All right. Well, happy Friday, everyone. This is our third community call of this new year of 2021. So thank you guys for joining. Just a quick reminder, as every week, please keep everyone, please keep yourself on mute. If you guys have any questions, please place in the chat. We will get to those questions following this community call. And we'll start off with the agenda. So today's agenda, we'll start with Mike with the KPIs. We will then move over to Ray for the developer bounty program. And then with the exciting launch recently of PTM, Portugal Demand Coin, Mahesh will give us some launch stats. And then moving over to Kurt will be some PTM Coin Press. And then we'll kind of round it out with Jess Sloss, which will be our guest speaker this week. So we're really excited. So I'll kick it over to Mike and give us some KPIs, Mike.
All right, so we decided to ditch the kind of boring weekly KPI slide from weeks past and also give a little more interesting color from the sidechain, which I think we was kind of missing in the past week's stats. So quickly going over here, I'll start on the mainnet side. Currently about 77.3 million rally that's circulating out there. 17.1 million in total liquidity across our Uniswap and Bouncer pools. This is up a decent chunk from last Friday when it was around, I believe, 12 or 13 mil or so. 606K in community treasury. This is a very large increase, up 70% here, primarily due to we've had some big deposits into our YDV vaults, almost doubling or more than doubling the amount of deposits from around 11 or so million to around 24 million currently deposited in the YDV vaults. And that last number there, about $70,000 worth of rally bridged in. And the ones that you see here with an asterisk, this is a data range of last Friday at 9 a.m. to this Friday at 9 a.m. The other ones are just absolute numbers. Now on the side chain, some of these numbers are not easily gotten, so we wanted to start bringing them up to the attention of the community, just because they are behind on they are in our private side chain. So currently 5.38 million rally total back in Credit Coin, up a modest 2% from last week's report. $107,000 worth of average daily volume across all transaction types in sidechain. So that's a pretty good number. I was frankly a little bit surprised how large that was. I would attribute this mostly to this week in general. The sidechain numbers are going to be a little elevated because of the launch of PTM Coin last Thursday, as well as the Genji Coin last Friday. Both of those are carrying over a bit into this week. So I wouldn't be surprised if next week some of these numbers were a little bit lower. Around 2,200 total coin holders on the side chain, $27,000 worth of new money purchased in. This is via credit card or with crypto versus 300,000 worth of rally converts. So that's a big disparity, obviously there. So there's a decent chunk of folks who are just moving rally around within the side chain. Likely also that $70,000 worth of rally bridged in is inside. Well, is a significant chunk of that 314, but obviously not the majority of it. In terms of donations to creators, we kind of view this as income to creators, about $1,300 this week in income to creators via donations, and $125,000 worth of rally bridged out. Normally, I think we'd like to see that number being lower than the amount of rally bridged in. I kind of attribute this a bit to some price volatility in rally this past weekend, probably as rally hit its all-time high over the weekend, I think of 42 cents, and then went down a bit. My guess is that caused some of this bridge out to be a little bit higher than expected. Yep, so that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. We will head over to Ray now for the bounty program.
So on the dev side, I think we'll even expand this segment a little bit. It'll be more than just bounties. We'll talk a little bit about the dev ecosystem and then more about how it impacts creators. And then kind of the other partnerships that are going on in the kind of building on top of rally space, as opposed to just the bounties, as we start to expand that. So today, just a little bit of updates, but that's kind of where this segment goes in the future. Had some improvements on the API recently. The webhooks integration went out, so now developers can register with Phelps, myself, or developers at Rally.io. And you can get your endpoints registered to receive various creator coins and approved by creators to get extra metadata. And then now you can build very live notification systems, things like that. Next week, I'll talk a little bit more about why these things matter. The TLDR in this case is that it makes developers' lives easier to build better experiences. But we can talk a little bit more about what those kinds of things can be and why they matter to create. Some other things that went up this week, kind of a product set of product updates, but they're pretty relevant to experiences off of the platform, or sorry, off of the Rally.io site. Things like creator and fan flags, or mostly the creator side is where the big improvement was, to allow data to go out through that webhook. So it's not in the site yet, but there's an option there. There's a lever there now for creators to allow more information to flow off of the site. That lets us do things like show user donation messages on a live stream or in a price feed or in a Discord room or things like that. Whereas before, the only systems that could do that were inside of the Rally product walls. It's a nice quality of life improvement, and it's a big step towards letting creator coins get used anywhere. Something coming up soon, so I'm always weary of doing spoilers on product roadmap stuff, but I know it's pretty close, is a feature called deep linking, and that's going to help both users off the site of Creator Coin enter the payment flow for donations and transactions, and also let creators kind of drive that on the site. So it'll roughly be something where you can now add parameters to a URL, and then you'll land right on the donation screen with that creator's coin already set up, maybe even a memo field for some e-commerce experience kind of imitations. And so you could go from something like a Discord room where you want to send a tip, or from a Twitch chat where you want to donate, or a couple of the creators' cases, they actually offer things you can donate in Creator Coin for to get access to something, or to get a play with me. And so you'll be able to, creators will be able to easily throw in a snippet in one of their chat bots, and it'll direct users right into the payment flow, so they don't have to click through the site and kind of find their way through the payment flow. So it's a big improvement for the users, but it makes it easier for developers to kind of intertwine the experiences in and out of the Rally site. There was also a big UX update yesterday for the site, which is a real nice improvement for creators and the users to be able to kind of know what they're clicking on. Just general improvements to the different ways that you use a creator coin on the Rally site. So less about developers, but a nice UX improvement. I guess a little other news. In addition to the bounties progress, we're making some headway on dev partnerships. So people building projects next to or on top of Rally that are related to supporting creators, and figuring out ways that they can use the tools and technology to kind of make the best use of both their project and the Rally project on behalf of the creators. So more news there in the future as we kind of staple those down, but more of a heads up that those are in progress now. Had a few of those discussions this week, and it's sort of a level up to the bounties system that we put in place, where we're having a lot of individual contributors build tools and tech for use of the creator coin, but it's not quite a sustainable business model for those individuals. I'm sure we're trying to beef that program up and level it up so that groups or orgs could then build projects around Rally as opposed to just individuals. A little more kind of hiring news on the dev ecosystem side. We have a creator success director joining the project in the next few weeks, and she's going to be a big support layer for both creator account management and onboarding and all those things, and making creators successful with all parts of the project. So this isn't dev ecosystem specific, but she'll also help with the product thinking and organization of process between all the groups that help try to support creators internally and externally from Rally. Upcoming targets for hires, we're looking for a dev community manager. So someone, technical, interested in repping the developers at every stage of the project, can jump into prototyping or code review and support the community in more difficult research, or give guidance to the project team on behalf of developers' challenges. So right now, Phelps and I have been doing that in addition to all the other things we do, and we want to make sure there's dedicated effort there. So that's a person we're looking for to join the community. And then probably also a full-time dev resource, just kind of do prototypes, research, understand all the technical platform challenges. We ran into one today where we were trying to connect stream elements and our webhook system, and there's an auth challenge. Knowing that ahead of time would have been able to shorten the confusion around trying to get that project started. And having someone that's just trying to understand all these platforms and what's available to the dev community at Rally would be a big help in making that stuff move a lot faster. So if you know anybody or you are that somebody, reach out to myself, anyone on the project. I'm sure you'll get connected quickly. So let us know. The only kind of bounty project update is on the community bot and the dashboard for it. So it's very close to a 1.0 state where we can have next to the Rally coin bot, like the one that's connected into the product, the community bot that has a lot of the same functionality. It also has a dashboard with sort of some charts, and you can run a lot of the commands that you can run with the bot in Discord. You can click through a UI flow. You still have to make your roles and channels in Discord, but now you can configure them and manage them from a dashboard if you're not familiar or friendly with the Discord commands. So I think it's a pretty good improvement. It'll help different kinds of creators that have Discord communities, and it also runs as a service, so we can add more features to it over time as a community. So that's real close. Hopefully next week we can talk about what it looks like. I can maybe show some screenshots or a workflow. That's what we got for this week.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. We'll go ahead and send it over to Mahesh for some updates and numbers on PTM's launch.
All right. So excited to talk about Portugal the Man. We launched them on Rally last week, and just give folks a recap of what the launch looked like here was Portugal the Man actually launched a brand new Discord server to pull in their disparate communities from like Reddit and Telegram and a few other places, and just make Discord the hub. And so really cool use of Discord in general. I think is a good example for other artists as well who want to be more digitally native. They had something like a little over 1,500 people join the server within like a couple days. And if you go check it out right now, it's like buzzing with activity. It is a very active Discord server, which is cool to see. They had over $100,000 in total transaction volumes in the first week. The really cool thing about this launch was that, while the band is super involved with it and the manager of the band, it was actually the fans that drove quite a bit of this. And so the first benefit that was offered in the Discord community was actually driven by a couple fans who have been maintaining an audio archive of old concert footage of the band for like 12 years. And, they never wanted to give it out for free, and they didn't want to like outright charge for it. There's like, different issues around that. And so they thought offering it via a coin gated, a coin gate would be the better way to do it. And so basically all you need to do is hold, I think it's 5 or 10 Portugal the Man coins, and then you get access to a channel where you can, talk about the archive. You can get access to the to the Google Drive that has all the stuff. You can even submit to the archive as well. And so it's like a VIP section of the community that's pretty interesting. And the really cool thing is not only are fans buying coin, some of them are donating to the band, even though the band hasn't offered any benefits around donations yet. A lot of fans are just sending coin to one another. And so, for happy birthdays, for just folks that they recognize from other parts of the community, for valuable contributions to the audio archive. So I think just a shining example of, what artists can be doing, and how this is it's not just artist and creator driven. Like in this case, so far, it's mostly been driven by the fans. And I think right now we're brainstorming with the band for the next level of like, okay, well, what can we do directly with the band? Let's think about watch parties that fans have to transact coin for within Discord. Let's talk about like NFTs, drops that you can buy with creator coins, and a bunch of other stuff that's on the horizon. But it's really cool to like showcase the multi-directional use of creator coin, which I don't think is apparent to everybody at the beginning. I think a lot of folks think about like, okay, it's like a one-way, fans can donate coin and get something, but in this case, it's a lot more than that. And so, I think a really good case study. I expect a lot of other musicians, and particularly ones that are a lot more digitally native already, to be much bigger and better than this, hopefully. And I think for digitally native creators, particularly like the Twitch streamers and folks like that on this call, if Portugal the Man could do something like this, I think it's, sky's the limit for folks who are, who have communities that are already like, living and breathing in places like Twitch and Discord. So really excited about this launch, and Kurt can talk a little bit about the press coverage that we had around it.
Great. Let's see if I can present and speak at the same time. Before I hit the slide, I just want to say it's great to see this call grow steadily over the weeks, and I help plan it every week. If there's topics or speakers you'd like to hear, this is truly the community call. So please hit me up on Discord or Twitter. Throw out some ideas again for topics or speakers, and I'd be happy to work it in the next couple of weeks. So let's talk about press coverage. So as you guys know, we've been working with Watchmen for a couple of months now, and it's just been tremendous. On this particular announcement, there was really strong response across crypto, consumer, and music press. On the crypto front, what was really interesting was, if you think about it, not a lot of people have been covering social tokens. There's just been a handful of crypto outlets that have been doing it. And over the last couple of months, Mahesh and Kevin and I have been meeting with a lot of these reporters, walking them through the Rally project and getting them excited about what we're doing with social tokens. That really paid off with outlets like CoinDesk that had admittedly never covered it before. This was one of their first stories that they've ever done. And we got really positive press across the board, and Decrypt, The Defiant, Cointelegraph, which is very positive. What's potentially even more exciting was to get more consumer press like iHeartRadio, Stereo Gum, Digital Music News, All Access, Fortune even. These are outlets that in some cases have never covered crypto before, much less covered a social token. So imagine calling a reporter from iHeartRadio that's used to writing about, Taylor Swift put out a new song, and say, I want to talk to you about crypto, and getting them excited enough to write a story. So it speaks tremendously, I think, to the work of the team and what we're doing as a project, that we're really sort of breaking down the barriers for crypto and social tokens. So let's get into some of the numbers. Over the last 7 days, the announcement generated more than 60 media placements. If we're looking at numbers, because we like to look at numbers here, we got Yahoo Finance, 48 million unique visitors per month. Radio.com. This is one of those websites that filters out to all the radio stations in the country. 10 million there, but that's also not accounted for all the readers. So, you're driving in your car, and right before the DJ says, oh, we're going to play Fill It Still, they would announce that Portugal the Man just announced their own cryptocurrency. So that's truly valuable in getting into the ears of consumer. Cointelegraph's Market Insider newsletter, 7 million. We got a mention in the Fortune newsletter, which is 5 million. VentureBeat, Cointelegraph, it goes on and on. Like I mentioned, in many cases, this was the first time these outlets ever covered a social token, much less crypto. Huge win for us. Not only is this great for the artists, but this is really going to pave the way for our entire community. Now, when we knock on the door, they will have heard of artists like Selah, who we announced a couple of weeks ago, and Portugal the Man. So it's going to open the doors for us as a project as a whole. This one reached a really great number, 84.1 million folks, huge. We received 373 unique tweets, many from popular tech, music, and radio outlets. We got some really kind of cool shout outs from RAC, who announced a social token pretty early, and it's kind of considered sort of the grandfather of space. He was super excited about it. Music marketer Sherry Wu tweeted about it. So did music philosopher Robin James. I'll drop these links in the chat when I'm done. Some of my favorite quotes. Cointelegraph noted, and a first for a blockchain world, the Grammy award-winning band will use crypto tokens to distribute previously unreleased material. Stereo Gum, which is a really cool sort of tastemaker music site, again, never wrote about crypto before in their life, said, instead of starting a fan club, the band is launching their own cryptocurrency, which fans will be able to spend on music, video, and merchandise. And finally, radio.com, again, another outlet that's never written about crypto, wrote, move over Bitcoin, there's a new cryptocurrency in town. Portugal the Man have launched their very own cryptocurrency that is completely community driven. There's a bunch of these quotes on the blog if you want to take a look. And as Mahesh mentioned, I think we're just getting started with Portugal the Man. And it'll be really exciting to see, now that we've blown open a couple doors, what we can do with the next crop of artists that come through. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Grant.
Thank you. Next is our special guest speaker, Jess Sloss. Jess Sloss, if you want to go ahead and take it away, we're excited to hear from you.
You guys hear me all right? Thumbs up. Right on. Cool. I really appreciate seeing some friendly faces here. Thank you to the Rally team and community. Been big supporters of C Club and the social token space. So kindred spirits. My name is Jess, and I call myself the instigator of Seed Club. Seed Club is a social token incubator. We help creators define their Web3 strategy, launch and grow social tokens in a cohort of trusted peers. We are about 6 months old and are native to the internet. So we're an organization that lives on Ethereum, is owned by our creators and our members. And it's really been quite a wild ride, as I think we've all sort of experienced the space take off in recent months. So I thought today maybe I'll just give you a little bit of my background, talk about Seed Club. I think Seed Club has given myself and our team a really interesting look into the space generally. And we're actually just about to launch our second cohort, which I can give you guys some sort of insight into. And hopefully there's like some context here that's useful for everybody. And I'd love to sort of open it up for some questions if that's appropriate afterwards. So I've been in the crypto space since 2017, fell in love with tokens as this antidote, I think, to some of the challenges that I saw with big tech. The idea of owning networks was fascinating to me. I think that's carried over into this idea of being owner members of communities that are supporting creators or that creators launch. So I was involved in launching an early security token in 2017, worked on an Oracle project that didn't quite make it out of the 2018 bear market, and sort of found myself in the social token space as a bunch of my friends had launched social tokens and all had similar questions, which is like, okay, now what? And so Seed Club kind of emerged from this Telegram group of individuals who were trying to answer that question. And I think to this day, there are more questions than answers in the space. The more that we sort of move forward, the more nuances sort of emerge. And we see our role at Seed Club as jumping into the front lines with creators to help answer those questions, uncover new ones, and start to pull the tech forward. So we launched our first cohort at the end of last year, worked with creators like RIC, Alex, Connie Digital, Carlos from Forefront, and a couple other yet to be launched tokens, and really learned a lot about sort of like the challenges, I guess, that these creators face. One of the most interesting learnings for myself was the emotional burden that kind of comes from launching a token that's tradable. So this tying of one's creativity to a market price. And then also really just started to see the amount of infrastructure that's required to make these things successful. So beyond just technology, but also very much into the community, the intellectual, the community support, I guess is the best way to look at it. So we've also been pretty active in trying to bring some of the tech forward and launched a hackathon at the end of last year as well. It sort of emerged from our community with winners like the Unite community, and really just trying to, I think like the big shift we've seen right now, and I think Rally is a great example of this as well, is this big shift away from platforms pulling creators forward into the space and now creators pulling the tech forward. And so I hear that even in the bounty discussion here today is really like, what are the tools that we need to, as creators, need to be able to do this stuff effectively? And I think there's still a long way to go, but man, it's ridiculously exciting to see the talent that is in the space and the smart people that are sort of building along with it. So maybe a little bit about how we work at Seed Club. We run cohorts of 6 to 12 creators, really try to create a community vibe there. And essentially our business model is creators contribute a small portion of the tokens that they're going to launch into the Seed Club treasury. And Seed Club brings our knowledge, our network, and access to everything from capital to tools to the table. And so usually creators are working with us because they're looking to avoid a lot of the mistakes and to launch faster, essentially. We're also, as I said, a digital organization. So we're owned by our creators and by the people who are creating value for those creators. So we're an Argon DAO, essentially, right now, where ownership is held by individuals who've contributed so far or the creators that we've helped to launch. So in many ways, we're exploring two things. One is like, how do we help creators use tokens to have more impact, monetize their work better, to grow these sort of new organizations. And we're also really fascinated with how we as an organization develop mechanisms for funding and supporting and bringing the knowledge and resources to this space. So we often ask ourselves a question of like, well, what does a Web3 Y Combinator for creators look like? And it's a thing that we have more questions than answers around, but I think we're making great progress. So one of the benefits, I guess, of sitting in my seat is I get to talk to a lot of really interesting people. And so I think the thing that surprised me the most is just how hot this space is and continues to be. I think we're starting to see like creators really pile into the crypto space generally, I'd say more into the social crypto space. So everything from NFTs to social tokens. I think, this huge growth in NFTs is nothing but bullish for the broader social token space. I think we're going to see those two asset types or token types being like very tightly paired moving forward. The interest from investors in the space is probably pretty shocking to me. The number of sort of tier A VC firms that I have conversations with, just looking to have a seat at the table to know what's happening in the space, absolutely blew me away. And we've been privileged to be able to work with some of them so far. And then I think like, you know, the general public's interest in this, I think, is sort of the wild card. And I'm really fascinated with this idea of, you know, how much I'm a huge fan of Web3. I love tokens. I support the idea of tokens and not abstracting away the complexities too much, because I think it's a whole new paradigm. And I'm super fascinated to see the early general public sort of lean into what social tokens are and what does that actually mean. And I think that's the most exciting thing I saw from the Portugal the Man launch the other day, was just watching just this flood of small buys, you know, 5, 10, 15 tokens that were coming in. And I think it's something that doesn't exist in maybe some of the more Gen 1 type social tokens where we're still going through Uniswap, et cetera. And I know like the roadmap that Rally has here is really exciting to sort of back people into this broader Web3 world. Yeah, so like my week this week has been all about interviewing creators. We had about 30 applicants to our incubator for this next session. And like, I've just been blown away by the quality of the human beings on the other ends of these projects. We're very, very focused on the crypto side of things. And so, you know, our thesis right now is that the general social token space is probably not quite ready for the biggest artists to come step in. There's still a lot of hand-holding and figuring out to be done. And at least for Seed Club, that's probably not the best type of artist to put into a cohort to try to figure things out in a community setting. Better suited to, I think we probably had Cooper on last week, and I know the work that you guys are doing here as well, really hand-holding a lot of these creators. So we're really interested in innovative experiments that are going to start proving or disproving some of the theses that we have in this space. And you know, whenever you do something new, there's sort of this moment where I wonder if it's ever going to work and who's going to apply. And I'm sitting here ridiculously excited about the cohort that we have to choose from coming into this next week. Some insight into who they are. Like, I think we have a few publishers that are exploring some really interesting angles. Again, these are all people who are very comfortable within the Web3 paradigm. And so these are crypto publishers or young founders who see crypto as a way of sort of expanding and decentralizing their organization, incentivizing collaboration, content creation, et cetera. And so there's some really interesting experiments around how do we give ownership, governance, and reward value in these emerging organizations that I think we'll explore there. We have a virtual influencer who is applied and it looks like we'll be working with. I'm really excited to share more about this, but you can imagine like, what is a community-owned virtual influencer who is out in the world creating value on-chain look like? So, well, I want to say more about this right now, but I can't. Stay tuned for that one. I think it's actually going to break a few people's brains. And if you aren't familiar with sort of like the VTuber virtual influencer world, it's absolutely wild and something you should have a look at. We're seeing a lot of interest from NFT artists, and specifically NFT artists that are looking to use tokens to bring together a community rather than just around an individual. Very bullish on that use case. Is sort of like, how do we incentivize the pooling of multiple individuals or organizations' social capital to create something that's bigger, that supports the group as a whole? And some, yeah, really interesting use cases of tools that maybe wouldn't be considered deeply Web3, but are trying to solve the challenge of how do you actually get tokens out into the hands of people who are going to use them with very little friction. And so there's some interesting experiments in sort of doing that off chain and then transitioning to on chain that we'll be exploring with some NFT artists. And then I think one that I don't think, like, I know the Rally team is thinking about, but I think more broadly, not a lot of folks are thinking about is, what do brands look like in this space, or how do brands use social tokens? And so we have a few communities that are exploring that, well established, both in the sort of creative field and in the advertising field, that are looking at social tokens as solving the similar problem that creators face, which is like, you know, convinced to go spend a lot of time and money at building out these, you know, outposts on the Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram, and yet knowing that their reach is being shrunk and that they're going to have to continue to pay more money to reach that audience. And so I think there's some really interesting use cases that some forward-thinking advertising folks are looking at, of how to sort of like, what does the fan club around Nike look like? And so I think you're going to see this evolution of like loyalty meets crypto meets digital collectibles that I think is going to be pretty fascinating. I think it's sort of a longer term push, but yeah, the action and intention around that has been pretty surprising to me. And then there's, just we're still very interested in the personal token space. I think all these would be considered more community focused tokens. So some YouTubers, Instagram influencers, folks looking at different ways of trying to incentivize the growth of their platforms using tokens. I think we see that as being something that's a little bit further off, and are mostly focused on with projects that have some social capital existing already, but we're still pretty bullish on that space as well. Yeah, all right. That's me talking quite a bit. I don't know if there's any questions. I hope I gave some insight into, what we're working on here. Great to see Kevin there as well. Yeah, is there any questions? Like how can I be useful to you guys at this moment?
I wanted to give you more of a compliment, Jess, if I can. I work pretty closely, one of our creators is Rare Skrilla, and I know you were talking about NFT artists. And I just wanted to pay you a compliment, because I've heard so many good things about what you guys are doing over there. And myself and Skrilla have talked, on multiple occasions in the last 2 weeks about some of the innovative ideas that you guys are, bouncing off one another and kind of presenting to some of these NFT artists that are trying to, explore more with the social token and utilize their NFT projects with the social token. So I just wanted to kind of open that up to the group and pay you a compliment from everyone, because he's praising you guys so much. So I wanted to do the same.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's actually a good reminder. One of the things that we're looking to do as an organization is to see how we can support artists or creators that are on specific platforms. And so, I think we're in early looks at how a rally focused social token cohort would look like. So how can we bring the learnings that we have from the rest of our projects into, to match them up with the learnings that you folks are all having around the Rally platform specifically, and really looking forward to, to working with those artists as well.
Hey, Jess, I'm curious one of the things that we certainly have beyond the usability, aspect of crypto, there's just like the economic aspect of crypto that is really confusing for a lot of creators that are kind of crypto novice. So I'm wondering how do you, when people are coming to Seed Club and exploring this and working with the community, how much of the economics of like, why am I doing this? What's the business model? What's the, how much of that do you get into versus how much of it is purely like engagement and driven by just building a loyalty and a community and engagement of that community? Like how much? It's funny. I think we wrestle with some of our creators come in and they're like much more interested in one or the other, and just interested to compare notes on what you guys are seeing in Seed Club.
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of the conversations I've had with creators, even just in this past week, is really trying to level set where the space is, like what's working right now, and then to identify where the edges that we're pushing are. And I think your point is really, at those edges. And so I think, probably some of the best value that we provide to the creators we work with is being able to get deep down the rabbit hole with designing. I think the way to look at these things is that we're designing economies. And I know that's the approach that you guys have taken with Rally, and then there's all these micro economies that are existing within them. And so I think we have a pretty open design space in around that. Like right now, this token gated access is like the template that is really working. And I think it's enough to get started. And there's also so much more that we can do. And I think looking at ways of creating value within those communities, representing that value within those communities is like the interesting thing, at least for me. So I think, we filter out a lot of early folks who are kind of in the more general, I don't quite get crypto space segment, I guess. But for those folks who are like, I see something here, I understand that economic design is actually a key part of this. That's kind of where I'm uncertain. I think in many ways, my big dream is that those are the answers we get from working with our next two cohorts, and that we get to share and publish, and that, we're set up in a way that really benefits from the free flow of information and getting more creators into the space. And I think, how do we design ways of generating revenue within these organizations? Like, I think it's a fascinating thing to think about how a creator actually realizes some of the value they've created in a token, and some more of the general tokens that are out there. It's kind of challenging, right? Like you're selling into your community in some way. So yeah, absolutely fascinated with that. And I don't think there are great answers just yet, but there are so many threads to pull, and I have just so much confidence in at least the existing templates and the emerging ones that, a dozen conversations over the past month make me just ridiculously bullish on the teams that are building and the way that creators are thinking about this.
Awesome. Jess, you have a question from Michael Morris. in the chat.
Can you say a bit more about supporting creators with the emotional burden of being tied to a marketplace price, as you had mentioned? Yeah. So I think like we've been extremely cautious in pushing the idea of launching a token on creators, and we've been very much leaning into inbound interest. And I think a big part of that was some of the learnings we've had with the early creators that we've worked with. And so I say that just as like the way that we deal with it is by being very clear that this is a thing you need to be considering. Like there's a responsibility that comes with putting a token out there where people are going to pay their money and own it. And you're going to have messages on your Twitter being like, when moon, sir, and please pump this, and like just a whole bunch of, not to mention the fluctuations in your price. And so I think the two ways I'm seeing creators deal with this, one is they're really trying to lean into the community aspect. So I think like empowering other members within the community to have ownership and responsibility within it. So it's sort of like the creating of an other entity that's beyond just their work, of which they're sort of core to, but not solely responsible for. And then two, I think it's just, we create a space where that conversation can happen and where they don't feel alone and where there's mutual understanding. And it like, I think the first session we ran, it just blew me away to see how everybody around that from, every creator that we had in that group had some experience with that. And so that's why we say we want to launch, in a network of peers. I think that's how we sort of explore frontiers well and effectively. And I mean, I think so much of this just gets figured out as the norms become more real and it becomes less of an edge case. And I just want to make sure that creators understand what they're walking into, and across the board they are. Like I think they think they are, and I'm sure the internet's a weird place, man. Like it's just a weird place. I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Awesome. If there's any other questions, go ahead and type them in the chat.
Yeah, one more for you, Jess, from me. I think I'm more and more fascinated by what's happening in the NFT space. And so thinking through how, I think a social token that captures, the value of what a community sort of contributes and makes of it. But then the NFTs become a very express way to be, part of the driver of that. And for those of us that I know a lot of folks here come from the gaming industry, a game experience is basically a virtual currency plus these virtual assets in that game economy, right? And so we've certainly been thinking about that more and more, and just wondering how you guys are thinking. Like, do you think how much are you leaning into the NFTs as a way to really get people exposed and sort of understanding what's possible in that economy, and then how much like with RIC and others that are starting to do both, how much do those two things come together? And just curious to your thoughts on NFTs, social tokens, and the intersection of those two.
Yeah, I think that intersection is the fascinating place in the space, and will continue to be. Like one of the first, I think, public things I wrote about social tokens was trying to understand the definitions that were being used. And so social tokens are being used to refer to personal tokens and community tokens and brand tokens, and really tried to advocate for the use of social tokens as a big, broad category that kind of encapsulates any way that social capital could be represented as an asset. And I think NFTs fit within the social token category, and that we're not really going to see them as, they'll be functionally separate, but very intertwined, right? And so I think one thing to note about NFTs is that I think we're going to see that the collectibles and art be just one of the use cases, and really the NFTs are going to represent provenance of all sorts of different creative types. I think OpenSea, the Zora team are all sort of working in and around this. And what I think an NFT can do is be an on-chain revenue source for a community, which is really interesting. So this sort of collaboration, creating something, curating something, having that value live on-chain, and sort of be in this trust minimized environment where your social token sort of acts as more as like an equity-like instrument or an asset that gives you governance or control over or rewards you for helping to create that value. So I think like I find it hard to see how there will not be just so deeply related moving forward. And essentially, I think there'll be part of like, we'll look at them as a part of a stack that gives a creator sort of freedom and control and a whole new open design space to go create alongside their fans and communities. I think we're going to see just like whole new organizations emerge that'll look a lot more DAO-like, but a lot less sort of intense, maybe is the word to use, because DAOs seem to be kind of intense, where collaboration's happening in more organic ways, creating value, having that value represented within the ownership of these social tokens. So we're really interested in some of the experiments that are, pushing on the edges of that. And I think curation and creation of NFTs is, very exciting. And I don't see them too far apart.
Jess, you have a question from Mason, but I do want to open the floor to Mason. If you don't mind, I hate to call on you, but Mason, if you want to read your question and introduce yourself, because you do have a close relationship with Allie. So I don't know if you want to ask that and kind of give some context.
Sure. Yeah. You guys can all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just checking. Yeah, well, so Allie's my fiance, and I work quite closely. I've probably been the one in the relationship that's a little bit more into crypto in general and spending my time researching it, but she's certainly been following in those footsteps quite recently, reading books on crypto as well. And with the launch of her coin, she wanted to learn more about it as well. So we've been just discussing, like, how can we provide value to coin holders? And I think one of the things just with Allie's mentality around creating content has always been, I don't want to bar off content to only my subscribers. So a lot of these services like YouTube and Twitch, they'll ask you to give something to your subscribers, especially YouTube. When they launched their premium subscription plan, they talked a lot about creating premium videos that would only be released to premium subscribers. But whenever Allie puts her heart and soul into a piece of content that she would want to release to her premium subscribers, she ends up falling back on, well, I'd like to release this content for the maximum amount of people. And then the ones who really care about that content can just donate to the channel and support me in another way, rather than forcing them to support me in order to watch this content. So when we hear a lot of people talk about coin gating their content, that's always a little bit of a difficult one for us personally, because we don't really want to gate off our content. We want to say, well, if you like the content, buy the token and support the community. But if you don't have the money to do that, we still want you to be able to enjoy the content. So where do you kind of draw that line, and how far do you think it's correct to even push it? And does that depend on the content creator?
I love all these questions that I can just answer yes to, because they're so complex and I think unique to each creator. I think, I mean, the thing I love about YouTube creators is just how much they care about their fans, right? Like there's just this deep appreciation for the gift of attention that fans have given them. And I think that's the thing that we really just need to lean into when working with any creators. And I think you'll see like really successful social token issuances be really focused on creating that value for fans, and the ones that maybe make a lot of money but aren't long-term successful are the ones that are not focused on really valuing that relationship. And so I think it really comes down to the context you put it in was like, at what point do I gate content? This is by no means the first time that you have to make that decision, right? There's all the different tools that are out there to incentivize that sort of gated content on Instagram and YouTube. And like, I prefer to look at like, how do you lean in and use these platforms to the best of your ability to generate attention? I think like YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook are great places to generate and capture attention. And we should look at them as top of funnel and trying to drive to something that's more substantial further down the road. Is that, unique content? Maybe. I think in many ways it's sort of just belonging, and being a member or an owner of a fan club is also a really interesting thing. And so I think, there's other types of actions. Like if we look at what RAC's done, people, or even what happens on Twitch, I think it's just trying to be closer to and be seen as more of a supporter of a creator that's going to drive a lot of the interest in social tokens. So I think like, we're really interested in how to use all these different platforms, publish as freely as possible there, but then represent the community as something that's distinct and valuable, and that being a part of that gives some unique value as well. So I think we'll really be recommending a dozen really interesting Discords and Telegram groups, and the C Club Telegram group is like, these are the chosen family for me. And so that's, this creating value together, collaboration, being closer to, being a part of the mix is, I think, extremely valuable, and the thing to really lean into. I look forward to talking to you more about it. Like, I know we have a conversation scheduled, Mason, so stoked on what you guys are doing.
Awesome.
Hey,
Thank you.
Mason, out of curiosity, how do you guys view content? Is it every single thing is content, or is like, for example, if Allie creates a really great content video, she puts it out to everybody, the video for the blooper reel, or the video for the how it's made, or stuff like that, is that also viewed exactly the same way, or do you guys view them separately or differently?
That's a really good question, actually. I guess I hadn't thought about how deep you could go with that, but I would say that, yeah, behind the scenes stuff would still be considered a content piece. I think kind of anything that she would release, whether it's like, the longer form stuff like Twitch streams and YouTube videos, or the shorter form stuff like tweets and like an Instagram post or something. I think all of that would be considered content, especially if she took the time to do like a behind the scenes thing. She would probably want as many fans to get access to that as possible. But I could see how the more like esoteric that the content becomes, maybe that's the type of content that you'd be a little bit more comfortable gating, because it's really only something that a super fan would want to see, and maybe a super fan would want to support you more. But still, it's tough to want to gate any of that content, at least from the perspective that we take on content creation. The one type that I will say that we've been a little bit more comfortable gating has been this like tournament circuit that we've been running, where we're letting a certain number of people play a different game that Ali's played in her past. So that's like standard Hearthstone, Battlegrounds, and Magic the Gathering. So we've been doing tournaments of those. We let in like 8 to 16 players, and we typically see more signups than the number of slots. So we've been giving a heavier weight to the people who hold Ali coin. And I feel like that is some special content for the people who get to participate, because Ali is actively casting those matches. And so for somebody who's a big fan of Ali, getting her to watch their gameplay is something that's really cool for them. And so gating that content off to only like the most hardcore people who are following the channel enough to see the different posts we do for the signups and go through the work to share their gameplay with us so we can actually stream it. That's a way that we do feel comfortable giving back. And I don't know if you would even consider like one of those slots as content that we produce or not, but it certainly is an interesting philosophical question to ask ourselves.
Yeah. The other thing, sorry, Mike, I just cut you off. Is the other thing I think about a lot too, and we're seeing this more with esports teams, is just different participants as well. So there's like, we think a lot about like fans and coin gating stuff for them, but it's like, with like Vanish Esports, I think we're starting to think about sponsorships. It's like, okay, well, if a sponsorship normally pays, Ali a certain amount, it's like, well, maybe the community can get together with Ali and figure out, what type of sponsorship is on brand for you guys, and have that sponsored by the coin. And by doing so, the value is shared with all the people in the community, you know what I mean, as opposed to a regular sponsorship, which would just go to, to one person. And so similarly, whether that's tournaments or sponsorships, or you identify a participant in your community who is a, time poor, cash rich, right, and just wants to figure out, would love to find a way to spend more and get more involved, but in a way that benefits all these other people who are just, just holding a few coins, or just want to, kind of go along for the ride and benefit from that in a different way.
It's interesting that you brought that up in the topic of sponsorships, but we had considered doing a very similar thing, but instead of with sponsorships, with like affiliate deals. So it would be products that Ali really recommends. And oftentimes we have trouble getting people to actually purchase through an affiliate link, because, like a lot of times they hear about a product they like, and then it's really a day later that they end up just Googling it and buying it from the site. They don't even click through the link. So we've shied away from affiliate deals in general, but I feel like if you tell the community and you post in the community the affiliate link, and you say, hey, all the money generated from this affiliate deal is going to go back into Ali coin. We're going to purchase and burn that Ali coin. Then you might have like a community of people that not only want to support Ali, but also have a personal incentive to purchase through these affiliate links. And that might motivate them a little bit better to actually make sure that the cookie ends up in the browser in the right way when they're doing the checkout process, and the money actually gets paid out to the creator that had the affiliate link posted. So I hadn't thought about doing it with the full sponsorship deals and maybe trying to bring more money into the ecosystem that way. But that's an interesting concept that we are kind of noodling around.
Sorry, Mike, were you going to say something as
well?
well?
The other thing I was going to say was, so I think it's, it definitely does vary creator by creator. And I definitely can respect that Ali's viewpoint on, pouring her heart and soul into content, and she just wants to share that broadly with everybody in her community. Curious to see about, coin gating does not always have to coin gate against content. You can also coin gate against things like recognition, for example, where, everyone has access to the same content, but only people who are the top holders or the top donators or whatever get, either a special role in Discord, or a special colored name in something, or get a little bug on top of the stream overlay that shows up every minute or something like that, or whatever. There's other ways to CoinGate besides only CoinGating content.
So guys, I'm going to have to hop. I got a call coming up, but I really appreciate the opportunity to come and share a bit more about Seed Club with you guys. Hopefully we can continue to collaborate moving forward. And yeah, look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you, Jess. I appreciate your time. That was awesome. Awesome. Well, if we have any other questions for anybody else in the call, if there are, please include in the chat and we'll get to them. Looks like we're good to wrap this up. That concludes the third community call of the year. So thank you guys for stopping by. I felt like this was a really productive call and we got answered a ton of really cool questions. So really exciting to hear. And sorry for the troll. We can't stop all of them, but I guess we made it.
The weirdest part about it is that it took so long to happen.
Well, the profile picture gave me an idea. I couldn't pull the trigger fast enough. So. But next week we continue and we'll see what happens there. So thank you guys and we'll see you all next week. Have a good weekend, guys.
Thanks.